Hey guys, so at this point I have a few speed paints up and I thought it might be fun to share my process. This is not going to be a super in-depth step-by-step tutorial, it's kind of like a guide to get you started. I'll narrate a time-lapse of a sketch I did and show you how I do my drawings. Remember that it's a time-lapse, I definitely do not draw this fast. This sketch took me hours. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So first, I like to do a super quick sketch just to get my ideas down and give me a base to work from with whatever pose I'm doing. It helps me get proportions right to have a guide like this under my more detailed sketch layer. For the legs, I start with this base shape and I flesh it out later on. The front and back are different shapes, but you can see that they're both split into 3 parts. I like to do long, thin tails in the sketch, but be careful with these because line art can be tough. For the wing, I do 2 main parts and then 4 fingers coming out from the top. Some people add the elbow finger too, but I don't usually. I'm kind of inconsistent with how many fingers I have on my wings though, and you can really do whatever you want because you are the artist. So if you like it, then that's what matters. Especially with fictional creatures like dragons, there's not really a right way to draw them because they're not real. After I do the first sketch layer, I turn down the opacity and move on to my more detailed sketch layer. Here I start with the snout, which I sketch out by using very blocky shapes to just show what position I want it in and give me a good base, which I will then add detail to later on. After that, I move on to the neck, which isn't all that interesting, and then I flesh out the legs. I use the base from the first sketch and just kind of make them thicker, especially that bottom bit on the front and the middle on the back. The talon is a bit like a hand with fingers and a thumb, though you will see I remove the thumb later, but sometimes I will do it more like a paw. Do whatever you want because it's your drawing, but this is how I drew the talons on this dragon. I base a lot of my dragon anatomy vaguely off of cats because they are quite similar. If you need a reference for a pose, I definitely recommend pictures of cats. The only thing is for wings, maybe look at bats because they have similar wings to the type I tend to put on my dragons. But you could also practice posing without wings because honestly, sometimes they just get in the way. Speaking of wings, the base of the wing should be right at the shoulder of the dragon, and I also like to draw out each finger, but you definitely don't have to, because again, it is your art, so do whatever you want. No rules. After the fingers, I move on to the webbing, which is pretty straightforward. I would also like to point out that using tools like Liquify or Transform is not cheating. They are there for a reason. Take advantage of that. Same with different types of brushes. Use everything on the software to your advantage. It is all to help you create beautiful art. I also sometimes add a claw bit like a thumb onto the wing, but I honestly cannot tell you how inconsistent I am with so many things I've talked about. So yeah. After I did the wings, I came back to the mouth just to clean it up a bit and add the teeth and details. You don't need to do individual teeth. I do sometimes, not usually necessary. Maybe for like a close-up of one roaring or something like that. I do the eye next. You can turn on your bottom sketch layer to help you position them. I did not, but that's because I'm pretty familiar with it, because I've been drawing dragons for upwards of 5 years now. I also like to add this scale detail above the eye because it looks cool. That's all. I like it. After that, I move on to the ear, which I like to make pretty big, but you can make it as large or small as you want, so yeah. Then horns, sometimes I actually do these in my base sketch. These are something I really have fun with because there's so many different shapes and styles to try. I've done ones that look like antlers before, and you could do like ram horns or bull horns or anything else because, again, no rules. Then it's onto scale pattern. Here I'm adding the underscales, but back to that later, I guess, because spines. These are another one you should have fun with because you could do fins, spikes, you could have layers of spines or feathers or basically anything, so try different stuff out. Something I do a lot that might be tricky for someone just starting out is making the spines wrap around the tail, and you can try this if you want, but if you're just learning for the first time, maybe have them go straight down the back and stay on top of the tail. After spines, we go back to some scale detail with a bit I usually do that is like a thin stripe between the overscales and underscales. I have no clue what it's called or if it's anatomically correct. Sue me, I like it. Then after that, I move on to the overscales pattern, yet another thing that is super customizable. Here I did a kind of curvy, stripey thing, but you do whatever. I also tried stripes on the underscales, didn't like it, and then we're done. This was just a sketch to get you started, but if you're interested in a breakdown of how I do line art, I could try that in the future. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, then leave a like. Bye!